Welcome. Man, it's been crazy, but of course we're back. Yesterday we had some more technical difficulties. Ooh, excuse me. I apologize for that, people. It's been crazy. All right. I just had to make sure because yesterday we were taping and we did a whole show, hour and a half, and basically nothing was recorded. So that was crazy, but sounds like we're hitting on all cylinders today, folks. So welcome to another action-packed episode of the Mortgage Mayhem Podcast. I'm your humble host, G Money, and today we got a lot of goodies for you today. We're going to just kind of do yesterday's shows today, and we're going to mix in today's show. So it's going to be a big show today. But, it's worth it because yesterday, like I said, we went hard in the paint, and at the end of it, listened back, and it was absolutely nothing. So before we can get going here, let's do a little house cleaning, and then we'll get this party started.
Mayhem Podcast, where the mortgage game meets real life, real talk, and a whole lot of chaos. We break down the deals, the drama, and the data behind the scenes of real estate finance, with a twist of street smarts, savvy, and a touch of madness. Before we dive in, here's the deal. The Mortgage Mayhem Podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are not attorneys, CPAs, or licensed financial advisors, and nothing you hear on this show should be taken as legal, financial, or investment advice. Always consult a licensed professional before making financial decisions. Well,
all right, we got that behind us just to keep us covered. But today we got some bombshells. We got a great lineup to bring forth to you. And like I said, guys, we don't want to stop the momentum, of course. So, we're going to keep this thing going. We're going to continue to build it. I know sometimes, you run into these technical difficulties, especially for a newcomer like me. So I have to kind of just work through it. And here we are. So today's show, we're going to jump it off. We got Trump's statements on Biden's health, Obama's statement on Biden's health. We got the Floyd Mayweather $100 million lawsuit against business insiders. We got 27-year-old woman who survived 3 weeks in the Sierra Nevada mountains. We got some Diddy news, of course, our kind of Diddy news, but more so than anything, he has protesters out there for $20 an hour with free Diddy shirts on. So we're going to talk about that, of course. The FCC requires Verizon to drop its DEI programs for $9.6 billion, right? So we're going to get into that. We're going to talk a little bit about Homeland Security, reality show pitch for citizenship, which is crazy. Women sues her ex-husband for wasting her youth. We got some Oakland couple who forced to watch their home in order to get a proper appraisal. We got the Atlanta tops U.S. cities in black displacement due to gentrification. FAMU chooses Margaret Johnson as new president. Pretty sure they're doing backflips over in Florida on that one. Cassie testified. Not just Cassie, a couple other folks. I know some people are on the stand right now in the Diddy trial, so we'll touch a little bit about that. And then we'll, get off into the Nottoway plantation that was destroyed by fire. Today's deep dive is going to be on SALT lending. We did it yesterday, but I think it's worth doing it over again today so people can hear it and then get a chance to hear me kind of break it down. Then we got our 4 mortgage and real estate hacks that we want to bring to you guys, help you guys out there as you're trying to build generational wealth, right? So let's get into this thing. All right, let me pull up. Let's get this guy on the mic. I thought we was going to have some civility here, but it doesn't look like it's going to be the case. But just to kind of jump it off, our humble person, Joe Biden, is has cancer, and just found out about it. Melania, and this is the statement from Trump. Melania and I are saddened to hear about Joe Biden's recent medical diagnosis. We extend our warmest and best wishes to Jill and the family, and we wish Joe a fast and successful recovery. And not just President Trump, but we also have President Obama, former President Obama. Michelle and I are thinking of the entire Biden family. Nobody has done more to find breakthrough treatments for cancer in all its form than Joe. And I am certain he will fight this challenge with his trademark resolve and grace. We pray for a fast and full recovery. That's from the former President Barack Obama. All right. So we definitely, want to just kind of give our own wishes, warm wishes out to the Biden family, because I know this could be a tough time for them. Let's also pray for his fast and full recovery here at the Mortgage Mayhem Podcast. So let's but in the same breath, we have the Trumps, we have the son, Junior, Trump Jr. They're running around acting a fool. This man cannot get well, without the drama. I've never seen a president that's so petty, though. It's just ridiculous. This man, has a diagnosis, and now they're over there talking about he been knew, everybody else knew, da da da, and you would think that the former president just wrecked the economy. The world was in flames. All kind of drama was going on when this new president came in, and that just wasn't the case. He came in pretty smooth. Wasn't too much, drama going on outside of, Kamala, stepping in for Joe Biden to run against Trump. So, I don't really understand why they're acting a fool about this. Let this man, heal. Let this man, figure out how to deal with, the sad news that he's found out about cancer is no joke. So for them to be out here, high-siding, so to speak, against the former president, in a time like this is just, to me, disgusting, for real, for real. I'm hoping that somebody can pull their coattails, which I doubt, and let them know, let's be sensitive here. Let bygones be bygones. You're the president now. Why are you still worried about what Joe Biden did when he was the president? You are in control. What is the issue? What is the issue? I don't understand it. So let's keep our prayers up to the Biden family. Trumps, y'all need to get your ish together over there. Let this man, deal with his untimely, medical diagnosis that he just found out in peace without, having to listen to all this crazy. It's like these guys don't know when to stop. They're so petty, and it just doesn't make sense. President's almost 80 years old and still out here acting like he's 16. So I don't get it, but we'll keep our eyes on it. And like I said, we just wish the Biden family a speedy recovery. All right. So let's keep it moving, folks. This guy right here, Floyd Mayweather, files a $100 million lawsuit against business insiders, bias reporting, and defamation over real estate deals. So Floyd is suing a journalist from Business Insider and the media company for $100 million, accusing them of defamation. He says the journalist published a false story that claimed his recent real estate deal, a massive 62 building purchase in Manhattan, never happened. According to Mayweather, the article not only questioned the deal's legitimacy, but also misrepresented his investments and painted him in a negative light. With racial and political biases, the lawsuit claimed the journalist refused to review paperwork that would have proven the deal was real. Now, Mayweather is demanding financial damages, a public retraction, and a court order to prevent further damages to his name. He says this is about making sure the media is held responsible when it crosses the line from reporting into personal attacks. The legal claims also include emotional distress and other violations. Okay. I mean, this should be pretty easy. If the deal was done, there's public record to show that the deal was done. So if Floyd is out here saying that he did, a transaction, and a reporter is saying that he didn't, this should be like cakewalk. We all know we're in the real estate business. As soon as you complete a transaction, it becomes public information. So if Floyd is out here saying he did a transaction and this reporter is saying that he didn't, this should be a slam dunk. Floyd should have an additional $100 million in his bank account soon because it's public record. You can't hide a real estate transaction. So I don't really get it or understand what's going on here, but whatever it is, they're going to get to the bottom of it. So, a lot of times you throw out these massive $100 million, lawsuits, and you end up with 30. It could be that play. But once again, we're going to keep our eye on it because, once you stick your neck out here, Floyd's running around like he's the new, major real estate investor. And if he's just, doing this for ish and giggles, then, that's an issue, Floyd. What is that about? Let's be real about our real estate because, to us, we thought that was a major, play that you were able to come up on. So if that is not the case, then, we're going to be looking at you some kind of way. So hopefully they'll get to the bottom of it. Not hopefully, but they will get to the bottom of it. Once they do, we'll be able to report whether Floyd was, on some real or Floyd was on some BS. So we'll definitely keep our eyes on it. I hope he wasn't on no BS. I mean, that's a 62 buildings purchased in Manhattan. And when you talk about, New York real estate, that's a total different ball game than most areas. Values are high. Real estate is precious in New York. So if he was able to pull that off, then, that's just that's another, I would say, feather in his cap, because now others can look at him and see that he did it and understand that they can do it too. So let's keep our eyes on that. And then, we'll report back if we get any, further news on Floyd and his $100 million lawsuit. All right, let's keep it moving. This 27-year-old Black woman was found alive after surviving 3 weeks alone in the mountains, fighting off animals, hiking 11,000-foot peaks, and staying alive on leeks and snow. So Tiffany Slaton is her name. She's a 27-year-old hiker from Georgia and has become a symbol of human resilience after surviving an unthinkable ordeal in California's Sierra Nevada mountains. What began as a solo backpacking adventure turned into a fight for survival after she fell from a cliff, injuring both of her legs and losing her gear in the process. Stranded and immobilized in a rugged snowbound wilderness, Tiffany faced 13 brutal snowstorms in less than a month. With no equipment or immediate shelter, she relied on her instincts and surrounding environment to stay alive. She used melted snow for hydration and foraged for wild edible, chief among them leeks. The role of leeks in her survival: leeks, a member of the alum family, which also includes onions, garlic, and chives, in the wild in various parts of the United States, including mountains area like the Sierra Nevada. Wild leeks, sometimes called ramps, have long been used by indigenous communities and survivalists for their rich flavor and nutritious value. High in vitamin A and K, leeks also contain small amounts of vitamin C, iron, and magnesium. They are low in calories but packed with fiber and antioxidants, making them an excellent emergency food for someone stranded in the wild. Tiffany reported found and ate wild leeks to keep her body nourished during a 21-day ordeal. Can you imagine being out somewhere 21 days with nothing but some leeks? She boiled them using melted snow, a critical source of both food and water, found against all odds after nearly 3 weeks with no communication and dwindling hope. Tiffany spotted a remote, unlocked cabin. She managed to reach it and sheltered inside. 8 hours later, a rescue team found her, bringing a miraculous end to the harrowing experience. She is now recovering safely, with her story resonating across social media as a powerful example of strength, survival, and the will to live. Her journey underscores not only the unpredictability of nature, but also the incredible determination of human spirit and perhaps the quite life-saving role of human plants like wild leeks. Wow. Okay. All right. So that's Tiffany and her being able to, get through what she was able to get through, which is just remarkable. Just, anytime anybody's able to be out in the wilderness like that, and survive, what can you say about that, right? What can you say about that? All right, so us, for the most part, we don't do a lot of hiking, a lot of stuff like that. So, apparently she does. So she knew what to do in that time of emergency. I probably would have been ate up by the wolves because I wouldn't have knew that leaks were leaks or, but this is great that we're able to kind of have this platform and report on different things because you get to be educated about things that you never knew even existed. I never even knew any of what she survived on even existed. So, for her to be able to be out there for 21 days, snowstorms, I'm pretty sure, wild animals probably, trying to get to her. For her to just, I'm like, how did she not notice this place earlier than, at the end? That one kind of threw me for a loop. But nevertheless, she's looked at as a survivalist. Like they said, she's been all over social. The article has been all over social media. People are praising her, which they should. But we're just happy to see that she's back home with her family and she's safe. So let's give her a round of applause. Actually, she deserves a definite round of applause. All right. We're going to keep it moving. Let's get into a little of this Diddy stuff. Free Diddy shirts. Folks are getting paid $20 an hour to protest outside court in support of Diddy. not the support being on payroll. Word on the street is people are being paid $20 an hour to stand outside the courtroom rocking free Diddy shirts during his trial. Some folks say they were recruited online with no clue what they were actually protesting. So I don't really understand what's going on here. I mean, Diddy's throwing whatever he can up against the wall, hoping something stick. But this, most people that see these free Diddy shirts out in front of the courthouse, ain't nobody really paying attention to that. They're paying attention to what's going on in that courtroom. And from every indication of what's going on in that courtroom, just based off of Cassie being on the stand, all these other Don from Dirty Money being on the stand, Cassie's best friend, now the executive assistant who who did a lot of work for Diddy. He's on the stand right now. It's not looking all that good for Diddy. I'm not one to say, if he's gonna get off or whatever the case may be, because that ain't for me to say. The jurors are gonna make that decision. But just based off of the information, excuse me, that was put forth about what Diddy's been up to for over, a couple decades, it's just been crazy. From the baby oil, to the Uggs, to the freak offs, to the abuse. It's just been a whirlwind of crazy, to say the least. I mean, you understand when people get money, they be out here, pretty much knowing they could just do or feel like they know they could just do whatever they want to. But when you're just, terrorizing people, when you're just using your power and influence to put people pretty much in bondage, you find yourself in, a whole pretty much RICO case, sex trafficking, racketeering, things of that nature. So we're going to just continue to watch this every day. Like I say, I have a good friend of mine who's in this space, the no flow, podcast, the flow podcast, the flow show podcast, Unfiltered. He breaks everything down. So if you can get on Instagram or different places like that, find him, seek him out. He got a bunch of breakdowns, even on his, different social media channels. He's been my go-to guy. A couple other folks as well have been reporting on this. And I've been going down a rabbit hole myself because once again, we all love, the music of Diddy. Nobody's saying that him as a person, because we've been kind of, seeing that he's been not so nice, so to speak. And if you really kind of look around, most of his artists either passed away or, they went on about their business with someone else. Bad Boy was definitely that label back in the day. You had a lot of top artists coming up out of there. But most of those artists, when they get a chance to tell their story, it seems like it's never a good story. To be an executive, leading a major, record label, then, being a major figure in the culture, to get to this point, to see the rise and the fall, this has been it's just been a shame, to say the least. So we'll keep our eye on old Diddy, see what's going on. He has his daughters, his kids. We want to send big ups to them because, unless they was in or part of some of these shenanigans, I know the daughters wasn't, but the sons are grown, so ain't no telling what they've been up to. But the daughters, to have to listen and see what their daddy has been up to for the past, 20, 30 years, it's just shameful. It's just shameful. That's pretty much the bottom, the words that I could put to this. It's just all shameful. All the shenanigans, all the abuse, all the manipulation, you name it, this man was a part of it in a major way. So whatever he deserves, he will receive. So we'll keep our eyes on it. We'll keep reporting. A little bit later, we're going to talk about the guy who's up on the stand now, his personal assistant, and he has a lot to say. So we're going to keep it moving. The victims out there, if they're victims, wish you well. Fortunately, we're here. Unfortunately, you had to go through what you had to go through. All right, so let's keep it moving. All right, so let's see what Verizon is up to. Verizon is up to some ish, and I don't think I'm not really feeling what they putting out right now. So in order to complete their purchase of Frontier Communication for $9.6 billion, the Federal Communication Commission required Verizon to get rid of all its DEI programs. So Verizon has basically taken a page out of these other companies' book. And on Friday, the FCC announced it would approve Verizon $20 billion acquisition of Frontier Communication following Verizon's decision to discontinue its diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative. The deal includes a $9.6 billion purchase price and the assumption of $10 billion in Frontier's debt. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr said the approval would lead to major benefits for Americans, including new investment in broadband and infrastructure nationwide. He described the agreement as a victory for practical, common sense policies. Early in the year, Carr launched an investigation into Verizon DEI efforts and indicated it might influence the FCC's decision on the merger. In response, Verizon informed Carr it would take down its DEI website, remove DEI-related content from employee training, and adjust its hiring, career development, supplier engagement, and sponsorship practices. These same changes will extend to Frontier once the acquisition is finalized. All right, so Verizon's up to no good. Well, I don't want to say they're up to no good, but they're up to the same things that these other companies that are whitewashing their DEI programs, and it's not been working out for them. I mean, Verizon is like one of them companies. I don't even know nobody who uses Verizon anymore. Cell phone. Outside of that, I don't even know what, unless their thing now is broadband. I'm pretty sure they have a nice little demographic of, cell phone customers. But outside of that, Verizon has been kind of in the back for a minute now. I would probably see Verizon at some point here getting out of the cell phone business. But I don't know their market share. They may have a huge market share where they don't have to be so visible like they used to be. We all used to see Verizon commercials, Verizon. And now you barely see Verizon commercials. So I don't know what Verizon is up to, but I don't think this is going to be good for them. A lot of these companies think that, or they're playing the game, let me do what I got to do right now to survive. But, once this, crazy DEI thing kind of fades into the black, then we're going to see what these companies are really made of. Target, they found out the hard way. They've lost billions. I think the crowd who was out here screaming, let's boycott companies, that I've been hearing pretty much a whisper from them. So I don't know if it was just a one and done, like most of the time this stuff occurs where, people kick up the noise, they scream and shout initially, and then, after time goes on, they kind of fade out, and then companies get back, to doing bad business, or if not doing bad business, creating a culture that's not good for their demographics. So that's pretty much what I feel like is going on here. The noise was loud initially, with protesters protesting against these companies, and it still might be going on. I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't see it as prevalent as it once was, once this kind of, started. But, we'll keep an eye on Verizon. We'll see if they are one of the individual companies that, will, pay the price later on. I think Target was the initial belt to ASS, but I don't see them switching back or adding their DEI. I mean, the CEO met with Al Sharpton. Nobody really knows what happened or what came about that meeting. But at the end of the day, most of these companies, they only really, relate to their bottom line. If you affect that bottom line, then that's typically when you can make changes. If you don't affect that bottom line and it's just, mere jargon, then they'll hear it, because at the end of the day, they understand how this works. If you just be quiet long enough, it'll go away. And that's pretty much what is happening now. DEI, it was such a shocker in the beginning, but slowly but surely, it's starting to fade to black. And this is going to become normal. People are back to being able to discriminate against people of color, women, LGBT, Q community. Hopefully I said that right. They've accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. They pretty much wanted to get the power back into, the individuals who are at the top of these companies. And they basically are saying, we don't want any, any opportunities for anybody but us. And you know what us means. I don't even got to say it. So we'll keep our eyes on Verizon, see what they up to. But, I'm feeling some kind of way. Verizon. Yeah, I mean, I'm just a low man on the totem pole, so it really don't matter. But, that's why I got a platform. I get a chance to voice my opinions about the things that I want to voice my opinions about. So we're going to keep it moving. This is the craziest mess I've seen so far. Homeland Security is reporting that they are considering a reality series where immigrants compete for citizenships. Yes, you read it right. The Department of Homeland Security is reviewing a pitch for a new reality TV show where immigrants will compete in challenges to earn U.S. citizenship. According to the Hollywood Reporter, the series idea was proposed by Duck Dynasty's producer, Rob Warsaw. That's just a whole world of Republicans. He claims the show is a celebration of American values through many are already raising eyebrows, including myself. So the prize, a shot at U.S. citizenship. He insists the idea isn't meant to be cruel, but rather a heartfelt series with tears of joy and fun, loud American challenges. Warsaw wrote. But this is just playing in people's face. It's already triggering. It's already a thing in that community. And, if it was done in a way that made sense, or it was done prior to this, it still would kind of be like, but for them to just, on top of everything else, people getting shipped back to their countries on airplanes, people who claim they're not illegal or they're still waiting to find out if they can, become legal, but they're getting shipped back, babies, mamas. It's just, it's pretty much warfare right now, to be honest with you, on the Hispanic community. And to have someone pitch now, Duck Dynasty, I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's a TV show kind of about some hillbillies out somewhere, maybe Kentucky, Tennessee. I don't know where they at. But I literally used to kind of watch the show until I found out what their ideology was. And some of the things that some of the members of the show was running around saying. I just, of course I tuned out and never tuned back in. I don't know if the show is still on. More than likely it probably is, because it's just one of them kind of shows that kind of, although it shows it just shows their lives or whatnot. But once you found out what they were saying outside of the show, I couldn't look at the show the same anymore. But this here is, a hot mess. And I've just been kind of watching people online that's talking about it, and everybody pretty much feel the same way that I feel. Why would you do this? Why would you be so insensitive? It's already bad enough you're doing what you're doing. We don't need no reality shows, about people becoming Americans at a time where, it's just going to look almost like, how can I put this? If there was a reality show, about slavery, and you can compete to not be, slavery, or compete to not be three-fifths of a person. If that was a reality show, what, it's crazy, so this here is pretty much on that same, playing field. I get it. People has an opportunity, or would have an opportunity to become. How are you going to do that in the show? There's steps you have to take to become legal. There's steps you have to take to be, a part of America. And I just don't really see an actual reality show being able to, make that happen. So shame on you, Duck Dynasty producer, and shame on you, Homeland Security, for even acknowledging it to the point where it can, be getting reported all over the place. It's not a good look. It's just really not a good look at all. All right, so we'll keep our eye on that one as well. I don't think we have to, because I think people will go crazy, before they actually, see a show like this actually on TV, because it's too insensitive. Just really, really insensitive. All right, so let's keep it moving. All right. Thought this was interesting. A 27-year-old woman sues her ex-husband for wasting her youth. She met him at 20, married him at 21, believed every promise he made about love, kids, and building a future together. Now at 26, after 6 years in a failed marriage, she's suing him for wasting her youth. The case reported back Bree Avery Zachary has sparked debate. Can you really sue someone for wasting your time in a relationship? I don't think so. Her lawsuit accuses her ex-husband of emotional distress, loss of opportunity, and robbing her of her prime years under false hopes. No kids, no home, no legacy, just broken dreams and time she can't get back. Or is this just the emotional cost when it doesn't last? Or is this just the emotional cost of love when it doesn't last? Is this accountability or entitlement? So, all of us have been in relationships that didn't work. So can you imagine what the course would be looking like where every time you was in a relationship, you say, all right, I'm gonna sue you because it didn't work, because we couldn't get on the same page, because our values, our morals and values aren't the same. Our way we want to raise our kids may be different. Or we got into it and we just found out this is not the person for me. And I'm pretty sure a person goes into it, or he went into it, or whoever went into it thinking, yes, I want to be able to give you kids. I want to be able to build a future together. I want to love you. So all those things are things that I'm sure in the beginning was something that was full throated. No Diddy. But things happen. You get to know a person. Your values may not be the same once religion, could play a part. The person could just not be in love with you once they found out who you actually are, and that happens. So, you know, for her to sue this guy because, he didn't, or they didn't, because, she plays a part too. I wish, it was an opportunity for him to speak so we can have both sides of the story. If that's the case, if that's how she feels, this will be a landmark case, because if this if he's found guilty and the world can see that this is a new way of suing your significant other. I don't know what she's expecting from him. Does she want money? I mean, at this point, the relationship's over. They don't have kids. So, 6 years of trying to see if something works, that's typical. And after 6 years, you find out this ain't working. So I'm gonna kind of move on with my life, and you should do the same without all the back and forth. I get it, I understand, trust me. But I would like to hear his side of the story. I don't think this is going to work, but we'll keep our eyes on it nevertheless. And if something comes down the pipe, when I say something, I mean she wins the case. It's almost like Me Too, the Me Too movement. If she wins the case of, it'll be tons of lawsuits running through courts throughout the country about this issue. I'm for sure about that. So we'll keep our eyes on it. Miss Bree, we'll see what you're up to. All right, so let's keep it moving. Let's talk about Miss LeBron. Savannah James partnered with the Howard University College of Medicine to test her new skincare line year-long clinical study. Yes, HBCU was one of the first calls for Savannah James when she decided to launch her new Reframe skincare line. One of her first calls was to Howard University College of Medicine for research and testing of products. She partnered with the institution for a year-long clinical study to ensure her products are inclusive and effective for everyone. In an email to @fashionista _.com, she stated, Howard was one of the first calls that we made when we started to build Reframe. James told Fashionista via email, we wanted our claims to be backed by real data and vetted by a top-tier academic institution. The doctors and scientists at Howard have been instrumental in ensuring Reframe is built for everyone. Okay. This is what that looks like, Reframe. All right. Okay. Savannah, I mean, just got all that money and got nothing to do with it, huh? Yeah. So she done started her own cosmetic line. So ladies, guys, I don't know if it's just for ladies or if it's for both. Look out for that. I just like the fact that she reached out to an HBCU. She could have reached out to Stanford, Harvard, whoever, but she went to another elite university. Just shows that she, not just her husband, but her herself has her ear to the streets, and she understands that talent, a supreme amount of talent, is at these HBCUs. So for her to reach out to them and get in contact with the doctors and the scientists, that was big. Not just for her, but for Howard as well, to forge that relationship. I'm pretty sure it can be a long-term relationship, where they can not only, do this particular line, or if you may look at some other HBCUs, or not just her, but other folk may, start to look at these HBCUs for what they are, a treasure trove of talent, a treasure trove of brilliant individuals. So it takes sometimes a person like her. I don't know if she's gotten a lot of fanfare for it, but we're gonna give it to her here. So big ups for Savannah. Let's give her a round of applause. I think she deserved it. Reaching out. Savannah James, the wife of LeBron James, out here in these HBCU streets. All right, let's keep it moving, guys. This here, I really don't like this right here. So, an Oakland company couple was forced to whitewash their home to prove its worth. Appraiser who undervalued it by $254,000, folks, now faces consequences. Right? So they renovated their dream home, built equity, and planned to leave it to their daughter. But Ronald and Dominique Curtis say an appraiser lowballed its value by $254,000. The reason? Racial bias. So they did what they made many feel forced to do. They whitewashed their home, removed all signs of their identity, staged it to sell, and it later sold for 1.2 million, 300,000 more than it was appraised for. What happened next led to a civil rights investigation and a legal win. This is ridiculous. I mean, I just don't get it. Like, what do people be thinking about when they do stuff like this? I mean, I get people are racist. I get it. I've seen this myself. I've actually had individuals do this, whitewash their homes because the initial appraisal came in so low. Where we had to get a new appraisal. We whitewashed the home and the appraisal came back in at the value that we initially thought it should come in at. So this is not just an isolated incident. This is happening all across our country, folks. You got to be studious. You got to understand this game like these people did. They knew their property, and it ain't hard to find out what your property is worth. There's things in place to, figure out what a property is worth, like comparables, like work done to the property, which allows the value to increase depending on what was done. And it sounds like these guys did a full rehab on their property, and they end up getting 300,000 more than what the initial appraisal said it was worth. So I hope they sued the ish out of the appraisal company. Appraisal companies, this is their new thing. You know, back in the day around 2007, 2008, they was running around here, you know, increasing values on properties that they know wasn't actually, you know, the true value, which in turn was a big part of the tragedy of the downturn. You know, a lot of people was running around making money left and right. So people were, you know, getting money. A lot of brokers were doing all kind of loans. I was right there in the middle of all of it. I worked at the bank. So you know, my hands was clean of it, but I've seen it. I saw it all. And I also saw when the ish hit the fan. And all them people who was running around doing that either was, you know, broke or they were in jail, you know, for fraud. So these appraisal companies that's now out here undervaluing property because of racial bias, you're barking up the wrong tree. Because this is not an uneducated real estate market. Folks know what their properties are worth. You have too many other people that's involved in the transaction that's not going to allow it to happen, like myself. You know, if I get an appraisal back on a property where we didn't did our due diligence and we didn't figured out what this property should come in at, and it comes back in 200,000 less than that, we're going to war. You know, so this is something that has to change, and hopefully these appraisal companies are starting to see that there's going to be a civil rights investigation when this does happen. And typically, from what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, the appraisal companies are losing. And not only do you get a bad name, nobody wants to do business with you. And that's exactly how it should be. That's exactly how it should be. Everything needs to be, why is it so difficult for things just to stay above board? Why is it so difficult for things to be on an even playing field? You know, Caucasian people or people that's doing things of this nature, you've already had a 400-year start. You know, so just let it be an even playing field. Nobody's asking you for nothing. We're just saying, give us what we deserve. Period. Point blank. End of story. You know what I'm saying? So we're definitely going to just kind of keep watching stories like this. I'm going to keep reporting because, I mean, I'm in the business. I see it. I see everything, you know. So if I come across something that's happening in the real estate mortgage market, we're going to bring it right here to this platform. And although this platform ain't big yet, ain't a lot of people rushing to it, I'm in month 1.5. You know what I'm saying? People been doing this for years to build their audience. I'm gonna figure it out. You know, slowly but surely, this audience is going to, you know, start to come together. I'm going to be, you know, one of the main reasons because of my reporting, because of my transparency, and because of the mayhem. We want to shake it up. We want to, you know, make people, you know, come and be a part of the community because they understand I'm just giving them straight facts. It ain't gonna be no sugarcoating nothing. We're gonna give them straight facts, not just current events, you know, hot topics, but also, you know, real estate, mortgages, everything, you know, that has something to do with the real estate market, realtors, appraisers. You know, we're gonna have an appraiser come up and we're gonna have that conversation with them. You know, so this is one of the main reasons why I did this show, is because I just want people to get the information. Like we always say, you can go, you know, to different places in order to get, you know, financial information like stocks and bonds and, you know, financial, you know, literacy. But when it comes to this real estate, these mortgages. You can't just, it's a cesspool of individuals saying they can do this or do that. But at the end of the day, it's all smoke and mirrors. There's no smoke and mirrors here, buddy. We're going to give you the straight facts here at the Mortgage Mayhem Podcast. So that article disturbed me because I've seen it myself. And, to see that a couple almost lost what they deem generational wealth is a tragedy at the end of the day. All right, let's keep it moving. So Atlanta is ranked the top U.S. city in displacement of residents due to gentrification. Atlanta is no longer a majority Black city. So Atlanta leads the nation in displacement of Black residents due to gentrification. Atlanta has been ranked the top city in the U.S. for displacing Black residents through gentrification, according to a research from the National Community Reinvestment Coalition. The report titled American Gentrification, Displacement in Black and White, analyzed over 900 cities and found that while gentrification is a widespread issue, its impact on Black communities is especially severe in Atlanta. Between 2013 and 2023, more than 20,000 Black residents were forced out of Atlanta neighborhoods due to rising property values, increased cost of living, and redevelopment that prioritize wealthier, often white newcomers. The study describes this process as being displacement by design, pointing to urban policies and development strategies that have systematically pushed out long-term Black residents. I don't like that. The NCRC's analysis revealed that 68% of all residents displaced in Atlanta during that period were Black. This racial imbalance is especially stark given that Black people make up only half the city's population. The report also noted that areas targeted for new investment often had long-standing Black communities, many of which were underfunded for years before redevelopment interest spiked. The displacement isn't just a housing issue, it affects the culture and social fabric of the city. Entire neighborhoods are losing their historical identity, and community ties are being broken as families are priced out and relocated. The findings from NCRC raise critical questions, also who benefits from urban development and how cities can promote economic growth without displacing their most vulnerable population. As cities like Atlanta continue to grow and attract investments, advocates are calling for more equitable housing policies, rent stabilization, and community-driven planning to ensure that progress doesn't come at the cost of pushing out long-term residents. All right, ATL. So regentrification strikes again. I like the fact that, once again, just an even playing field. Allow everybody to be involved. If you can, you can. If you can't, you can't. But to just regentrify these areas and then just, displace people, to me, it's just like modern day. I don't want to say the S word, but, it has me feeling that kind of way. But then I don't just blame it on others. I blame it on us as well. Because as soon as we see that certain areas that's a part of our culture, certain areas that we've been living in for decades are trying to improve the area for their own selfish needs and own selfish wants, we got to get in the game. We cannot be on the sidelines until it's over. And then we complain it when we saw it from the first, duplex that's being built in areas where you're like, what is that? Where where did that come from? You know, or the first box store pops up, you know, in the surrounding areas, or they're talking about building new school. When you start to hear the dog whistles, you got to get in the game. At the end of the day, if you got money, if you know, handle your business, you have just as much right to properties and land than anybody else. So although people are being displaced, I think they're being displaced because they're walking around like they're blind, like they don't see this coming way ahead of time. They don't just, you know, build buildings. They give you all kind of warnings, you know, before they start to regentrify or gentrify the areas. You got to be paying attention. You can't just be walking around with your heads in the clouds because you're getting pushed out. You're losing out on opportunities, and others are coming in and they're continuing to build their generational wealth while you're being pushed out to somewhere, God knows where, you know, where you're renting. You don't have an opportunity to invest. These are areas that you grew up in, areas that you raised your families in, and you're going to just allow people to walk into these areas, take them over, and then kick you out. It's a displacement, but it's basically get the HEL double hockey stick up and out of here. That's what they're really saying. You don't deserve to be here. We're here now. New sheriff in town, buddy. You weren't smart enough to see us coming and get involved and get your piece of the pie. So we're going to take the whole pie. That's pretty much what they're saying to you. You know, so Atlanta, if you want to continue to be like what they say, when like Chocolate City, like DC, or, you know, areas like that, then you might want to step your game up. You know, if it ain't too late. It might be too late because once they come, and they monopolize for decades. You know, you just be on the outside looking in. You know, so we'll keep our eye on that. I mean, I do a lot of business down in Atlanta. I know a lot of people who live in Atlanta. So I'll continue to have conversations with them, aware, you know, bringing them awareness of what's going on. You know, because sometimes, you know, you tell the right people that may just be out of the know, they can, you know, jump to action and make a change, right? All right, so we'll keep it moving. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Where's old Marva at? Because she got people in an uproar. Marva Johnson. FAMU has selected lifelong Republican Marva Johnson to be their next president. The selection committee believes she represents the core values of the HBCU. Marva Johnson to be their next president. The selection committee believes she represents their core values. Johnson, who currently holds the position of group vice president at Charter Communication, is only the second woman ever to lead the university, following Elmira Magnum's tenure from 2014 to 2016. Her appointment came after a heated and controversial selection process on May 16th. The FAMU Board of Trustees held a vote to finalize their decision, with Johnson emerging as the winner in an 8-4 vote. Several trustees, including board chair Kristen Harper, Belvin Perry Jr., Craig Reed, and student bodies president Zala Bryant, voted instead for Donald Palm, FAMU's current executive vice president and chief operating officer. Palm was a popular candidate among supporters. Trustee Natalie Fliggers was the only member absent from the vote. Critics of Johnson's selection pointed to her limited academic background and connection to conservative politics as reason for concern. Nonetheless, she will take on the role of president at one of the nation's most respected historical Black colleges and universities. Well, I mean, they tried, but she broke through. So you guys just gotta hold her to the fire. She may have an opportunity to bring some things to the school that others couldn't do because she's in them kind of circles. But she also has an opportunity to uck some ish up too. And that's pretty much what folks are thinking she's going to do. Book banning, all that craziness that they be going through. DEI, well, you can't really DEI at a Black school, but some of the advantages, African American studies, she might have the compensity to try to do away with the history now that she's infiltrated, the HBCU lineage. So I think that's the big thing that everybody's worried about. Like, she's about to come in and try to whitewash the university. That's been a historical Black university for decades. And that's where all the ants is coming from, I do believe. They think because of the party that she represents, the individuals that she hobnobs with, their ideology, and not just theirs, but her own ideology, is going to ineffectively create an environment that these college students aren't used to. And not only that, if she gets in, this is another opportunities for others, to see that she has a Republican MAGA type. It might be other opportunities where they can backdoor into some of these HBCUs and internally try to whitewash and create a new ideology that doesn't need to be created. Right? The reason we have HBCUs because our predominantly white universities didn't feel the need to educate us back in the day. So we had to, create our own and, educate our own, to the point where we have so many brilliant individuals now today that came from HBCUs, right? So we're going to keep our eye on Miss Johnson for sure. And I'm pretty sure a lot of other folks are going to do just the same, right? So that's that. I know Will Packard is probably, pulling his skin out because he ain't got no hair last time I checked. Because he was all over the internet just going crazy about this. So this is not the outcome he wanted for sure. All right, let's see something real quick. All right. Let's keep it moving. Let's talk about a little bit of Diddy news, a little bit of not just Diddy, but we also want to talk about the new individual that's okay. Sorry guys, I just got all kind of emails coming in. Let's talk about this. So U.S. Representative Anna Luna claims that evidence that they have for Tory Lanez will be released in 36 hours. Those who rush to call for his incarceration should be prepared to be held accountable. And then she comes back and says, we have compelling evidence proving Tory Lanez's innocence, and it will be released in 36 hours. So this is about to be interesting. Tory just got stabbed up. I think we reported that last week. He just got stabbed up, and he's in a hospital somewhere. I don't even know if he's back in jail yet. And now, in that same time frame, his legal people came out and basically said that the driver is now not recanting, but coming to the table to tell their story. And they're saying that he is innocent. So we're going to keep our eye on this. I don't want to go too deep into it right now until we kind of see what's getting ready to get released. But Tory, it looks like Tory might be on his way home. So we'll keep our eye out for that, and report back to you and let you know what we come up with. All right. Okay. So Lord Diddy's former assistant, Davis James, testified he was Diddy bopping on drugs. Just when we thought we heard it all, Diddy's sex trafficking and racketeering trial, here comes another jaw dropper. Diddy's former assistant, David James, took the stand on day 7 of the trial in New York City, and he did not hold back. Under questioning from the prosecution, James admitted to being deep in Diddy's lifestyle. When asked if he had ever taken ecstasy, James replied without hesitation, "Yes, I was drinking Ciroc. I took ecstasy. I was Diddy bopping." And he clarified the phrase, saying, "I was vibing." According to James, the vibing didn't come without a cost. So, this is another insight into this trial. Like I said, I just wanted to bring that up because he's up on the stand right now. And he's, he might be, putting the screw, Diddy into Diddy, with his recollection of what's been going on when he was there. I was reading he had to take lie detector tests, and he's seen all kind of abuse. He was the assistant. While things were getting stolen, watches, money, Diddy, when you got as much money as Diddy, much material things as Diddy, you got people around who, he might not be taken care of like he's supposed to, so they be hungry. They see an opportunity to take something from them. Most of these people are who they are. If you see a 60, 70, 80, $300,000 watch just laying around, ain't nobody around, these guys are picking it up and getting it to the local pawn shop or local, person they can get it off with. And that could be a potential come up for individuals. But Diddy's way of trying to combat that is, doing lie detector tests on folks when things come up missing, money, jewelry come up missing. And he is today up on the stands talking about just that, right? So we'll definitely get back to you guys. It's probably gonna be like an 8-week trial, 2-month trial. So we'll have ample opportunities to talk about Diddy and his shenanigans, right? All right, let's keep it moving. What have got here? Okay. I just wanted to kind of touch on this a little bit because I didn't even know it existed, so to speak. But the Nottoway Plantation in White Castle, Louisiana, the largest remaining antebellum mansion in the U.S., was destroyed by a massive fire on May 15, 2025. It was built in 1859 by enslaved labor for sugar magnate John Randolph. The 53,000 square foot estate has been operating as a resort and wedding venue in recent decades. While some mourn the loss of the historic structure, many in the Black community view its destruction as a form of symbolic justice. A viral video shows Dr. Crawford Johnson pouring libation, an African tradition of honoring ancestors, on the ground as the mansion burned behind her. She remarked that the divergent in response underscores a broader societal deficit in empathy and emotional intelligence, particularly in understanding the historical and psychological burden that plantations represent for Black Americans. The incident has reignited discussion about the appropriateness of preserving sites with painful history. As one commentator noted, no one would consider hosting weddings at a concentration camp. Why should plantation be any different? This event challenged us to reflect on how we commemorate history and whose narratives are prioritized. So, this is just, I didn't even know it existed, but plantation as, being used for resorts and wedding venues, it's just like they playing in our face. They know what went down on those plantations. They know the triggering effects those plantations do. When you ride by something and you see plantation anything is triggering. And like they said, nobody. Where's the sensitivity? They just feel like they can't let it go. They still have to remind us of the brutality that we endured, and now we're still here thriving, when they thought we were going to be a generation that would be extinct, or a generation that would continue to help others to build generational wealth, to build countries, to, the reason they came and got us in the first place. So for this, I don't know how it burned down. I haven't heard that yet. Can't wait to hear what happened. But nevertheless, it's gone. And it just signified, something that when folks saw it burning down, it almost became a celebration, because of what it meant, in its entirety, to a whole race of people. So now that it's gone, other reminders of what occurred. You want to take books out of schools. You want to not have our kids be educated about history, but at the same time, you want to keep these kind of symbols in our face to remind us of the history. Make it make sense. It don't make no kind of sense to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to keep these type of, platforms or whatever the case may be to remind folks of what happened, but you don't want us to educate our kids about what happened. It's just ridiculous. At the end of the day, it's just ridiculous. So we'll keep our eyes on that as well. We'll see what the outcome is. Who burned it down? Was it electrical? Was it, somebody who just was enough is enough, or it was just accidental? We'll definitely keep our eyes on it and see exactly what is going on. All right. So let's keep it moving. Let's talk about some mortgage hacks, right? We got 4 mortgage hacks today, folks, that we're going to kind of dive into and give you some, some game, so to speak, help you with your potential investments out there, or if you're just a first-time home buyer. The reason I do these hacks is just to kind of give you a glossary of information that you could go back to whenever you decide, or if you decide, you know, to kind of pursue a career in real estate, or to, use real estate as a side hustle, so to speak. But today's hack, we got 4 new mortgage and real estate hacks. And today's is, you can use crypto for your down payment. You know that, right? Secure financing through platforms like Salt Lending, and we'll be doing our deep dive on Salt Lending here shortly. So you'll kind of get a gist of what that looks like. And then we could go to our second mortgage hack. Leverage short-term rentals during renovation. Rent out a portion of the property to cover carrying costs. Great idea. While you're renovating your property, if you got a 2-unit or whatever the case may be, you can, do a short-term rental while you're, renovating to cover some of those costs. This is a great hack for investors, especially. You know what I'm saying? So, definitely look into that. Our seasoned investors, or our investors on, that the strategy is short-term rentals. This will be a great hack for you. Offer seller financing to create cash flow. This is kind of like an old way of doing things. There's so much financing out there available for individuals, so they kind of get away from seller financing. But if you come across a property and, the person wants to get from up under it and you can't get financing, this is a good way, to securitize real estate. You just link up with the seller, y'all come up with terms, and then the seller has a residual income every month, because you will treat it as if, it's a piece of property that you're paying for on a month-to-month basis. Now, what you do with the property is up to you. All right. And then last but not least, buy in gentrifying areas before the announcement. We were just talking about that in Atlanta. When you see something going on in your area, get to buying if you have the opportunity to do that. Because if not, they're going to buy it all up. And then they're going to raise the values. They're going to, price you out, and you're going to be sent packing. So when you see something, do something is the motto, right? If you see something, do something. All right. So that's that. Let's keep it moving. We're going to bring up our great correspondent who does our deep dives for us. Let's get to it. Da-da-da-da-da. And Salt Lending is going to be our deep dive today. So let me make sure my people are ready to go. All right. I think they're ready to go. So I'm going to remove myself.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at something pretty interesting, basically, how you can potentially get cash using assets you already own. but without actually selling them.
Mm-hmm.
And we're zeroing in on the crypto world, specifically Bitcoin, and a company that's been doing this for quite a while, since 2016, apparently.
Exactly. Yeah, we're going to dig into Salt Lending. They actually call themselves the original Bitcoin-backed lender.
Okay.
And just so everyone knows, our info for this deep dive comes straight from their website. So we're really getting their side of the story, how they present things.
Right. So the mission today is to, unpack how these Bitcoin-backed loans work, at least according to Salt, what they're offering, who it's for, and really, if you're holding Bitcoin, what this might mean if you need some liquidity, some cash.
Yeah,
Okay, so Bitcoin-backed loans, the basic idea, you're using your Bitcoin as collateral, right? Like security to
exactly.
borrow cash like US dollars or maybe stable coins, but you hang on to your Bitcoin.
That's the absolute core of it. You're leveraging the value that's locked up in your Bitcoin, but you don't actually sell it. And what SALT really emphasizes is that these are crypto backed, not credit based.
Oh, right.
Which is a really key difference from, traditional loans. Your credit score isn't the main driver here. It's the value of your crypto that's, well, primarily being looked at. Your Bitcoin is the key.
That is a big difference. And it does open up some interesting angles, doesn't it? Like maybe avoiding taxable events you'd get from selling.
Potentially.
Plus, if Bitcoin's price shoots up later, you still own it. You can still benefit.
Precisely. That possibility of keeping your long-term Bitcoin position while getting cash for now, that's a major draw for some people. So let's talk about Salt Lending itself. They make a pretty big claim right out of the gate. The original Bitcoin lender since 2016.
Yeah, that's quite a while in crypto years.
It really is. Being around that long suggests, well, a certain level of experience in a pretty young industry.
And they seem to operate quite widely, too. They say they're the largest licensed provider in the US plus global coverage.
Yeah, that implies a pretty significant scale.
Yeah.
And maybe one of the most eye-catching things they state is their proven track record. Over $575 million in loans originated.
Wow.
And this is the kicker, zero collateral losses.
Zero. Really?
That's what they claim. In finance, especially crypto finance, which can be, let's say, volatile, that's a stat designed to build a lot of trust. Zero losses on that volume is definitely noteworthy.
Absolutely. Okay, so if someone's thinking about this,
Yeah.
what are the basic loan details, interest rates? How long do you get to pay it back?
Well, according to their site, rates start at 8.95%. And this is crucial, they make it clear that rates and terms can change. They'll vary based on, your specific situation, the loan amount, the collateral, the usual factors.
Right. Always read the fine print.
Always. And they mention a typical term is around 12 months.
Yeah, 12 months. And how much borrowing power does your Bitcoin give you? Looks like up to 70% loan to value or LTV.
That's right. LTV, loan to value. So if you had, say, $100,000 worth of Bitcoin, you might be able to borrow up to $70,000 against it. That 70% LTV means there's a 30% cushion, basically.
To protect the lender if the Bitcoin price drops.
Exactly. It acts as a buffer against volatility.
Got it. And it looks like they offer no prepayment fees. That's good.
Yeah, that means if you get the funds to pay it off early, you're not hit with an extra charge. That adds some welcome flexibility for borrowers.
Definitely. Okay, so those are the general mechanics, but Salt seems to tailor things for different types of users. Let's start with individuals, maybe like a lot of folks listening. What's the pitch for them?
For personal users, it really boils down to getting financial freedom,
Yeah.
accessing cash, leveraging your Bitcoin, all without selling. They also highlight fast access to funds, often within 24 to 48 business hours.
That's quick.
It is. If you need money fast for, say, an investment or an emergency, that speed could be a big plus.
And they have this thing called stabilization, given Bitcoin's price swings. That sounds important. How's that work?
Yeah, this is quite interesting. Stabilization is basically a safety net for your collateral if the market gets rocky. If your Bitcoin's value drops below a certain threshold relative to your loan, the system can automatically swap some of your Bitcoin collateral for USDC, that stablecoin pegged to the dollar. So it helps keep the loan properly collateralized. And as they point out, it potentially lets you buy back into Bitcoin later, maybe at a lower price. It's really a risk management tool for volatility.
That sounds like a smart way to handle potential dips.
Yeah.
It could definitely offer some peace of mind. And they even try to frame the borrowing decision with this think about net benefit of borrowing concept.
Yes. They give this hypothetical example. They plug in numbers like an average Bitcoin growth of 50%, inflation at 7%,
and their borrowing cost at 13%.
Right.
And doing that math, they suggest a potential net gain of 40%. Now,
So
obviously,
huge caveat here.
huge caveat. These are just examples. Past performance is never a guarantee of future results, especially with crypto. But it does give you a way to sort of think about the potential trade-offs weighing borrowing costs against potential holding gains.
Right. It's just a framework. You need to weigh the potential upside against the costs and, crucially, the risks of borrowing against something volatile like Bitcoin. Okay. What about businesses holding Bitcoin? How does SALT approach them?
For businesses, the narrative shifts a bit. It's more about unlocking capital to drive growth. They even mention potentially faster access, like 1 to 2 business days sometimes.
Okay.
The idea is businesses could use these loans for, expansion, covering operating costs, maybe investing in new projects, all without selling their Bitcoin reserves.
Makes sense. And they also mentioned businesses potentially earning yield, something like up to 10% APY on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and stablecoins. How does that fit in?
That seems to be part of a different service they offer, maybe called Salt Lend, focused on earning interest on crypto assets.
So not directly tied to the loan itself.
Not directly linked to borrowing, no, but it shows they offer a wider suite of services for businesses in the crypto space. It could be a way for businesses to make their assets work harder, maybe offset loan costs indirectly, or just manage their crypto treasury better. Earning yield on stablecoins is part of that too, helps manage volatility.
Interesting. So a broader platform for businesses, and then there's this private clients category. Sounds like high net worth individuals.
Yeah, that seems to be the target. For them, the focus is on things like exclusive wealth strategies, effortless liquidity, a dedicated relationship manager.
Hmm.
Basically, a more bespoke, high touch service for larger portfolios and complex needs.
Okay, so tailored offerings for different groups makes sense.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the big concerns.
Yeah.
Security and trust, especially with crypto lending. How does SALT address that?
That's absolutely critical, right? They really lean on their history here, emphasizing they've been around since 2016 and have weathered the highs and lows, their words, without, they claim, losing client assets tied to loans.
And the specific measures.
They mention proven security processes, having comprehensive cyber insurance, using top tier infrastructure, partnering with known security firms, and employing agile risk management. I mean, surviving that long in crypto does suggest something about their processes.
Yeah, that longevity, plus the claim of zero collateral losses since 2016. That is a pretty strong statement in this industry, given all the hacks and issues we've seen elsewhere.
It really is. That history is likely intended to be very reassuring. So let's pivot to what SALT calls the SALT difference. What do they say makes them stand out?
All right, what are their key selling points?
Well, first, they highlight their U.S. jurisdictional head start. Operating within U.S. regulations, they argue, provides trusted solutions and peace of mind.
Okay, the regulatory angle.
Second, they double down on that security and trust built on experience, pointing to nearly a decade in the business and their established processes.
Experience and trust. Got it. What else?
Then there's the core benefit. Leverage your digital assets for growth without selling, that fundamental appeal. And finally, they bring up that stabilization feature again, positioning it as a key way to help protect your collateral from market swings.
So regulation, experience, the core value prop, and that specific protection feature. Makes sense. Now, like any financial product, there have got to be disclaimers, right? What important notices does SALT provide?
Absolutely crucial to cover these. They state very clearly available rates and terms are subject to change and may vary. No surprise there. They also mention jurisdictional limitations, so their services might not be available everywhere.
Okay.
And importantly, just using their website or platform does not guarantee the availability of any offer, promotion, terms, loan, or return. Basically, applying doesn't mean you automatically get a loan on specific terms.
Standard stuff, but good to know. And what about the risks inherent in this? Borrowing against crypto?
They do admit it. They say borrowing against collateral entails risk and may not be appropriate for your needs. They also remind users that digital currency is not legal tender. It's not government backed.
Right.
And critically, SALT accounts are not FDIC or SIPC insured like traditional bank or brokerage accounts. That lack of government insurance is a fundamental difference.
It's a very important point.
Yeah.
And their stance on giving advice.
Crystal clear. No investment advice. They state explicitly that nothing on their site is an offer, endorsement, or recommendation for any specific crypto or security. They strongly urge users to do their own research, DYOR, and consult qualified financial, tax, or legal advisors. Standard but vital disclaimer in this space.
Okay, so we've walked through SALT Lending's offering based on their own information. The big picture seems to be they offer a way for Bitcoin holders, both individuals and businesses, to get cash without selling, positioning themselves as an experienced, regulated, and secure option since 2016.
That sums it up nicely. It's about unlocking liquidity from your Bitcoin while keeping your potential upside. And they highlight their US focus, their track record, and features like stabilization as key parts of their value.
So, for you listening, hopefully this deep dive gives you a solid understanding of how these Bitcoin-backed loans work, at least from Salt's perspective.
Yeah.
It's certainly an option to be aware of if you hold Bitcoin and need cash,
hmm
but it's essential to weigh those potential upsides against the very real risks involved.
Absolutely. And that actually brings up a fascinating thought to maybe leave things on. As digital assets keep getting woven into the financial fabric, how might services like salt lending evolve further? And how could they change the way we all think about and use the digital assets we hold? Something to ponder.
Okay, we're back. That was our deep dive on salt lending. Real quick, we're gonna more than likely be doing an interview with the big wigs over at Salt Lending. I am so anxious to do an actual interview with these guys. Because this is a whole new world that we're getting ready to venture off into. And this would probably be like the first platform discussing crypto as a lending tool. Pretty sure a lot of individuals out there would be interested in, learning that facet of lending. So, just a real quick, the central theme of Source is Salt's offering of crypto-backed loans, specifically focus on using Bitcoin as collateral to access cash liquidity. This model is presented as an alternate to traditional credit-based lending. The core idea is to allow individuals, businesses, and investors to leverage digital assets without having to sell them, thereby avoiding potential tax implication and allowing them to hold on their appreciating crypto. So, like I said, we're going to line up an actual, interview with these guys over at Salt Lending. They've already reached out to me. I just haven't reached back out to them as of yet. So I'll do that over the next couple of days and get it maybe scheduled for next week, Tuesday. So I'll, let you guys know ahead of time when that interview will actually take place. All right. So that's going to be our show for today. We're wrapping up this episode. We got a lot in. Like I said, yesterday was a little crazy for me. Hopefully today we don't have any technology. Let's stop sharing that. Yeah, we don't have any technology situations today, and we can put this out to the masses a couple times on a restream. But if you found value in today's show, make sure you subscribe, like, and share with someone who needs to hear this. And don't forget to join us live every Monday and Tuesday from 12:30 to 2 p.m. for unfiltered discussions on the stories that shapes the mortgage and real estate markets. Keep it locked right here. And remember, in the world of mortgages, there always going to be mayhem. Let's get out there and get some deals done. And until we meet again, have a great week. And we'll be, looking forward, God willing, to see you on Monday. I'm out.